When you wear the Rings of Power, you win or you die. Wait, that's not right. Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings are two different shows. Still, they hold a surprising connection. While the entire genre of fantasy fiction owes a huge debt to J.R.R. Tolkien, the creation of Amazon's first foray into Middle-earth, The Lord of the Rings of Power, might be a byproduct of the success of Game of Thrones. HBO's adaptation of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire book series was the ultimate fantasy saga of the 2010s, inspiring networks and streaming services to acquire the rights to popular genre IPs. Without Game of Thrones, shows such as The Witcher and The Wheel of Time might not exist. Of course, comparisons between the aforementioned franchises were always inevitable, considering that Amazon's The Rings of Power debuted shortly after the premiere of House of the Dragon on HBO. Even Martin knows that viewers will pit the shows against each other in a battle of fantasy warfare, but he hopes that people can enjoy both shows on their own accord. He told The Independent, "I hope both shows succeed. I'm competitive enough. I hope we succeed more if they win 6 Emmys, and I hope they do. I hope we win 7. At the end of the day, the Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones franchises are unique entities that bring their own spins to fantasy fare. However, that doesn't mean they don't share some common elements that enable perfectly understandable comparisons to be made. Robert Aramayo is the force that binds together the Rings of Power and Game of Thrones franchises. The 29-year-old English actor has developed a knack for playing popular characters on fantasy series, or to be more specific, playing the younger versions of beloved established characters. Aramayo rose to fame by portraying a young Ned Stark during the 6th season of Game of Thrones. He appeared in a series of flashback sequences that shed some light on Jon Snow's family history.
No. Now it ends.
He did an admirable job of honoring the legacy of Sean Bean, who played the House of Stark leader during his middle-aged years. Of course, one does not simply forget that Sean Bean connected The Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones when it premiered in 2011. So Ned Stark is the true connector between George R.R. Martin and J.R.R. Tolkien. In The Rings of Power, the Englishman plays a younger version of Elrond, the legendary half-elven character who's appeared in every on-screen Lord of the Rings project to date. The character, who was brought to life by Hugo Weaving in Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, will have a key role to play in the Amazon series, which was what attracted Aramayo to the fantasy project in the first place. The Elrond we meet in The Lord of the Rings of Power, is slightly different from the wise and storied warrior we see in Peter Jackson's movies. Here, he's not quite the strong, stubborn, commanding leader that he went on to become. For a start, he's relatively uninterested in attending council meetings and concerning himself with political matters. Additionally, he's not on the best terms with some of the elves' allies, though he is able to use his charm and cunning to get what he wants during moments of political persuasion. While speaking to Variety, Robert Aramayo revealed that bringing young Elrond to fruition was exciting, as it meant exploring uncharted territory in some ways. Furthermore, he doesn't think that Game of Thrones and The Rings of Power are anything alike, with the exception of being fantasy series that he worked on. He said, "They're very, very different shows. My job on Game of Thrones and my job on The Rings of Power were very different." According to the actor, Game of Thrones allowed him to draw upon material that was already there for inspiration. However, since the first and second ages of Middle-earth are open to interpretation in many ways, The Rings of Power allowed him to essentially build a character from scratch.